In today's episode, I take a brief look at huge success author Napoleon Hill, and I make the observation that maybe, possibly, Napoleon Hill was kind of a jerk. Let's start the day. Welcome to Every Day, a new thought show. I'm Thor Chalgren, and today I'm going to take a brief look at Napoleon Hill. You probably have heard of him. He is the author of Think and Grow Rich, huge, phenomenal worldwide bestseller, over 15 million copies sold. We all probably have heard something about him. He was someone who inspired many modern day success authors with his own philosophy and the stories that he tells about how he created a life for himself, pulling himself up and finding opportunity. And he shares all of his tips in the book. But what's interesting about Napoleon Hill is I went and looked and did research about him, read a biography written about him. And honestly, there were times where I'm reading the book where I thought Napoleon Hill was kind of a jerk. I talk about this in a previous podcast episode, and I'll link that in the show notes below. But in general, Napoleon Hill was someone who, for many years of his life, was not someone you want to emulate. He was kind of a hothead. He got into fights in business. He ignored his family and his wife. He had a number of business failures, and during the time that he was with his second wife, he kind of let the trappings of success go to his head and ended up not in a good place because of it. So that part of his life, which did include the time that he wrote Think and Grow Rich, and it was actually his second wife who helped him write this book. But it was during that time in his life that we would say he was not someone that we would want to emulate at all. But it was his later relationship with W. Clement Stone who brought Napoleon Hill in to help him teach his philosophy to Stone's salespeople and his insurance organization. It's that part of his life that, in my estimation anyway, redeemed Napoleon Hill as a person. And this was from like 1950 on. So really the sort of renaissance of his life came well after he'd written Think and Grow Rich, well after the period of time that we would think that he was this amazing person that we would want to emulate. And it was W. Clement Stone who saw something in him and brought him into his organization. And it was really that period of time where Napoleon Hill became, I guess you could say in some ways, more comfortable in his own skin. And it was really kind of his second or even third act in his life that probably was the time in his life where he was most comfortable with who he was and really did live the philosophy that he teaches in the book. So the lessons for this story for me, one is don't put people on a pedestal. You know, a lot of times we could look at someone like this and just assume everything about them was great, amazing, and that every word that they had is gold. And sort of we can imagine that they were this greater than life figure who lived an incredible life. In Napoleon Hill's case, he had his ups and downs. He had challenges. He had failures. He had moments that if you looked at it, you would not want to emulate him. So anyone in your life, if there's someone that you look at, maybe someone that you take advice from, someone that you want to learn from, know that for the things that they do that are good, for the things that they do that benefit you, they're also a human being and they have their faults and flaws just like everyone else. My second point is to think about in your own life, are there people that you know where maybe you only see the flaws in them and you only see the faults? Imagine if you were someone that ran into and did business with Napoleon Hill in the 1920s when he was kind of a jerk. Imagine if you ran into someone like that now and you could only see the things that you found unredeemable about that person. What if you knew that 10, 20, 30 years later, that person would have a renaissance and their life would become more meaningful, that the person you wished they were now, they eventually grow into. Know that everyone always has that capacity in them, and that when we allow them to grow into that, that's the place where they become the person that their teaching suggests that they are. So have grace for people and know that people that you look up to are human just like we are. Thanks for watching the show. If you like this episode, please consider subscribing to my channel and liking this exact episode. This will help the show grow and build a community of people who want more positivity, more joy, more excitement and passion in their life. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.